Hey folks, welcome to the brand new episode of the Pick Up and Play podcast. My guest today is the Vice President of the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. If you've seen the show before, or if you know who I am, you know that since 2011, I have been the DJ and MC for the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. Today, I have the Vice President of the board, Toby Wickwire, as my guest. I have a fantastic interview lined up for you all, but before we get to the interview, I want to give a big shout out to Vault 31 Bar and to Dot Campo for their support over on my Patreon. I have bonus content for every single episode available on patreon.com/DJSwitchPDX. So if you'd like to support what I'm doing, you want to see more content from each episode, as well as other benefits coming in the future, please head over to patreon.com/DJSwitchPDX. I only have a single tier right now. It's $5 per month, and that $5 gets you access to every piece of bonus content for every episode, plus anything else that I have to offer. So please consider not only subscribing to this YouTube channel, but also supporting the show by going to patreon.com/DJSwitchPDX. Okay, let's move right into my interview with the Vice President of the board for the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, Toby Wickwire. Okay, so it should be recording on your side as well.
Yes.
Cool.
I mean, it says there's a little thing that says recording in the corner.
Is that good? Does red light mean good? Do we go now?
You're totally putting all this crap in there. I already know it.
Hi, Toby. How are you?
Oh, I was doing better a minute ago. No, I'm good.
It's good to see you, man. We don't get to hang out a lot anymore since you moved.
Yeah, I moved like 5,000 miles away.
It's a short, 16-hour plane ride?
Yeah, 12 or something like that.
Yeah. But I'm really, really glad that you're still really passionate about maintaining your position with the Retro Gaming Expo, which is, obviously why I wanted to have you on this show. Like why, one of the many reasons why I thought it was really important that you and I get to sit down and chat. Cause how long have you been with the Retro Gaming Expo?
I mean, I was a vendor at the first one.
The first one.
Yeah. So, it's one of those things that kind of slowly transitioned from just being a vendor to helping out a little, handing out flyers, to then when we sort of made it a little more professional and started a board, I was on there from the beginning.
Okay. So do you remember what year that was?
No.
Nope.
I mean, I know that the first show the first Portland Retro Gaming Expo that wasn't even called that on the first one was in 2006. So 2009, 10. I you know what? I think we officially incorporated in 2011.
Okay.
But I can talk about that.
Okay, which is about when I came on. So yeah, okay. So so you have been around more or less since the beginning, and then at some point, excuse me, and then at some point you joined the board, and was your position on the board? You weren't always the vice president of the board. So how did that happen?
Well, so before there was a board, I mean, I was definitely officially helping out. But at some point we decided, let's make this more professional. We need to have a board. And at some point when we did paperwork, we sort of had to choose positions. Someone had to be president. Someone had to be secretary. Someone had to be vice president. The other people are members of the board. That's when I became vice president. It was not a decision like you should be the vice president or, an election or something like that. It was just, there was so few of us at the time. Everyone had that type of position.
It had a title.
Yeah. And, only a few of us have stuck it out.
So,
since that time.
So, but when you formed the board, the idea behind that was that you were incorporating the Retro Gaming Expo into, was it a not-for-profit, I think is the term?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and the Portland Retro Gaming Expo is still not for profit.
Correct. It's a 501c4 nonprofit.
what does that mean for folks that maybe don't quite understand
Sure.
like the how that works?
It means we're not doing it for the money. I mean, we're not getting paid. We're volunteers, just like the other people you see there volunteering for the weekend. Only we do it all year long.
Okay.
There have been over the years some small benefits, of course, but we do not get a salary from this.
Okay. So it's all entirely unpaid. You guys, and when I say you guys, I mean everyone on the board basically is just there for the love of the show and for the love of the culture.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
really. I mean, we want to see the show succeed, to make the people that come to the show happy, not to get rich.
It's funny. It's always amazing to me how misunderstood that idea is. That there's so many folks out there in the world that assume that, like, why would you ever do something that you weren't getting paid for? Why would you ever put that much time and energy into a thing without directly benefiting monetarily from it? For you, is it still as much a passion project as it used to be? Like, can you speak to like why you still are passionate about staying on this nonprofit board, even though you're no longer living in Portland?
Yeah, it's difficult at times, of course, because it is a lot of work, and I think all of us on the board at some point have questioned, like, why are we doing this? Like, is this really worth it? But
It's a lot of
the
work.
what it really all boils down to is just making this awesome event that we all know people love.
Yeah.
So seeing people's reactions to the show is the reason we do it. And
Yeah.
it is fun and challenging to work with the other board members and put this thing on together. Like, they're like family, so you love them and you kind of hate them sometimes. It's just overall it's a great experience.
Yeah.
But it obviously can be challenging.
It's like fighting with siblings sometimes, where
Yeah, of course.
it's like you all get mad at each other and then, all right, I'll see you at dinner, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Everyone wants what's best for the show, but everyone has different ideas of how to do that. And we're
Right.
all passionate, so sometimes being passionate about something leads to conflict.
What I really love about that, though, and part of the reason why, a lot of folks might assume that like I would want to sweep this under the rug, or like we wouldn't want to talk about this side of being a member of this board for the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. But I think it's important to talk about because there's a really common phrase that people like to use: pressure makes diamonds. And what I've seen is the sort of like the little arguments, the little pressures, the little conflicts within the board has created a better product over the years. And every year that we all get back together, I say I'm not on the board, obviously, like, that, but like, just for folks listening at home, like I'm just the DJ. I spin the records and now I host a podcast. Uh, but by and large, whenever the team responsible for the Retro Gaming Expo being what it is get together and put one on every year, it feels like every year it gets better and things change and things grow and things improve. And so, like, honestly, that's a big part of the reason why I love the show, why I come back every year. Yes, I'm paid to be there, but like, it's an amazing weekend. I'm not paid to tell everybody that will listen that it's my favorite weekend of the year. I do that
Yeah.
on my own.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think sort of going back to the fact that we're a nonprofit means that we make different decisions than other similar, like, pop culture events. And I don't know that everyone that comes to the show understands that, but I
right,
think you feel the difference.
right.
And maybe people don't understand why it's different, and they also, maybe it's a negative thing sometimes. They wonder why something isn't the way they expect it from other conventions, but it's because we aren't making a decision on how do we milk the most money out of this part of the show.
Yeah.
We never are making that decision. Obviously, we need money to run the show. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars every year to put this show on. So
Right.
we have to balance out our costs with what we charge for tickets or whatever other way we make money, sponsorships or the vendor booths and things. But we're not doing it just to grow this thing at the end that we're going to split up or something.
Right.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah. And I think probably the easiest place to confirm that is in the ticket prices.
Yeah.
A weekend pass where you get access to everything at the Retro Gaming Expo is the same price as some events for like a day pass, like a Friday pass, even like not even a weekend day. Like and so it's crazy to me that um an event has scaled to the size of something like the Portland Retro Gaming Expo and is still not so much concerned about making money as it is concerned about like how much money do we have, like what's the minimum we have to charge to be able to make this happen again next year.
That's exactly what we're always talking about. Yes. Yes.
Which is amazing, man. I really love that. So I want to back up a little bit though, because like obviously being a part of something like the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of passion, but that passion had to have been there before 2006, right? So like take me back to little Toby. Like when did you start getting really involved with video games, and what was like some of your favorite gaming experiences growing up?
So, I'm a Gen X kid, so my family had a Pong system, and then
Nice.
in 1981, I think, I wanted to get an Atari 2600 that several of my friends had, but I asked for that for Christmas and I didn't get it. What I got was an Intellivision, which I don't think I even knew what it was at that time. But
Right.
I'm so glad I did, because, I could go play Atari at anybody's house, but I was the kid that had the Intellivision. I think I had one other friend that had it, but my friends would come over before school and we'd play every day. And my family also had a pinball machine. Like my grandparents had a pinball machine,
Oh
so
wow.
my parents had a pinball machine. So we had a Knight Rider, not Knight Rider like the television show, but Knight Rider like a semi truck themed pinball machine. So
Okay.
we had that. And then also around this, early 80s, my dad bought a Superbug arcade game at an auction for, I don't know, $50 or something like that. So we had a pinball machine, our arcade game, in television, and that's sort of my young childhood. As I
Okay.
got older, I had a NES and a Genesis, and then that's kind of when my serious video game playing ended. I didn't, I was more of a video game collector than a gamer. Of course, I've played lots of video games since then, but I've
Right.
never been someone to sit down for dozens of hours and play some role playing game or something. That's just not me.
Sure.
So yeah, I guess just then as an adult getting nostalgic about things, I started thrifting, and in the mid 90s I started collecting video games of all kinds, just buying everything.
How much of that was do you think a direct result of your dad's store?
Yeah, I mean, I collected something my whole life since I was born, basically. I mean, I was being given things as a baby that were to
Yeah.
collect, So, yeah, I mean, my grandparents started the store in the 60s, and then my dad worked there. I worked there my whole life. My sister works there still.
Now
So, yeah,
your sister's still running the store, right?
correct. She and
And
I both own it together, but she's running it because obviously I can't from Europe.
and it's Coin Corner and Hobbies in Oregon
Correct.
City.
Yep.
Uh
Did you go there when you were a little kid?
so I did. So funny thing, and this is the kind of story that like never ever gets told. And so I'm so happy that we have a platform to talk about this. When I was very, very little, my dad collected coins. And one of the main places that he would get a lot of his coins was from Coin Corner in downtown Oregon City because it was on his way home. My dad had
I
a
knew that. I did know that. I forgot.
my
Yes.
dad had a computer store
Yes.
in Clackamas, which is like the next town up, like the next town north of Oregon City. So, you know, it was about a 10-minute drive up the freeway to get to the family computer store, and then a 10-minute drive home every day for my dad.
And I always thought the computer store, it's in a weird area, and it's not easy to find if you're not from the area, but you could see the sign from the freeway.
Yeah, I mean it's not there now, unfortunately. But yeah, he moved. He was in like a strip mall until 92 when he moved into the little house that would like sat right on the freeway on ramp. And so it was in kind of a weird spot, but like it was completely visible from the freeway, which was genius.
Yeah, oh, it's so cool.
But my dad would shop a lot at your dad's store. Yeah. And so many years later, when my dad passed away, my mom parted with a lot of his coin collection and brought them to you at Coin Corner. Yes. And you were like, that's my handwriting.
Yeah.
On some of those coins, like some of the little slip things that, and so, but I remember being a little kid. So like, you know, folks who maybe aren't from the Pacific Northwest, maybe don't know this, but we get snow, you know, a couple times a year. And it's like we get 11 months of rain, about 2 weeks of sun, and then, you know, like a week of snow every year. And so whenever it would snow, rather than drive to the family computer store in Clackamas, every once in a while, my dad would say, "Hey, come on, we're gonna ride the bus to Clackamas to go open the store." Yeah. And so we would walk to from our house, which was kind of on a hill in Oregon City. We would walk down the hill. We would take the Oregon City has this like old elevator that was built in the 1800s. And we would ride that elevator down to the bottom, like sort of the bottom part of Oregon City, and right off of that elevator was Coin Corner. And so we would stop in there because I wanted to look at the toys and stuff, and my dad wanted to look at the coins. And so we'd stop in there for a minute and then move along to the bus station to get the bus into town. And so like every year when it would snow, I would go with my dad to go, like, we would grab breakfast at the little cafe. It used to be called Arts Cafe, which was like just up the street. And then we would walk down to Coin Corner, and then we would go to Coin Corner. We'd go get breakfast, and then we would walk down to catch the bus to get into town so that my dad could open the store. And then we would have like a snow day at the computer store. I'd sit there playing video games while my dad was trying to like do work. And I couldn't have been more than like 8 or 9 years old. And this was like a weird sort of like, excuse me. This was a weird sort of very specific part of my experience growing up. And your dad's store was part of that. Cut to, I don't know, 30 years later, and we work together at the Retro Gaming Expo now. And it's so weird that even though, you know, you and I never knew each other growing up, we have so many connections. It's that small world thing that like there's so many people that we knew, and so many people, like, you know, between your dad's store and my dad's store, like we had this weird sort of connection that we never knew about until we were not only like into adulthood, but like straight up married. Like,
yeah, way into adulthood. Yeah.
Like way into adulthood. We figured all this out.
Yeah. Yeah. I found that with some other people that, you know, I mean, most people, I guess, that live in Clackamas County probably are aware of my family's business and your family's business. So this isn't that uncommon to find out that someone knew about your store.
Sure.
And then, you know, later in life, it's always, just weird when it happens. Cause I never remember, oh, you're that kid that, you know, did this or whatever. But, you know, I just, a lot of people have come up to me and, you know, told me, oh yeah, I used to come there and buy RC cars or model rockets or whatever, you know, back in the 80s.
I had a friend of mine that got married about a year and a half ago now. And she and I had been friends since middle school. And you know, stayed close through college and everything. And She asked me to DJ her wedding, and her dad came over to me at one point during dinner and was like, "Hey, how's your dad? How's the store?" And he didn't know that my dad had passed away in 2018. And so like I told him, and I felt so bad because he felt bad for bringing it up, but I was like, of course you didn't know. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's really sweet that you remember
Yeah.
my dad and that you would ask about him. Like, it was so nice, Um, it was, but it was sort of another reminder of like what we're talking about. Like, there's little, so many people that sort of grew up around us, around that area, um, are so much more connected than maybe we realize, or maybe we think about, because we're so busy living our lives and we're so busy doing the day-to-day grind of just trying to like get by or trying to satisfy whatever need, that we don't necessarily spend a lot of time thinking about like how we're all connected in a smaller market area like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then which is funny because like we both know TJ from Epic.
Yeah.
TJ and I went to high school together. He was a year
I
behind me.
knew that. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you may not know this, but my mom's parents and my dad's parents both live behind Gladstone High School. So
Oh,
I've
no
spent
kidding.
lots of time right in that area, and, playing in the fields there and going to Thriftway when it was,
Yeah,
an actual business, yeah.
that's
So
where I
I'm
used to go get
also,
lunch.
yeah. And
Yeah.
my parents went to Gladstone High School. So
Oh wow, no kidding.
yeah. Yeah.
They probably graduated long before I did.
Yeah. I hope so. No, my dad started high school before Gladstone High School existed. So he went to West Lynn for the
Oh, okay.
first 2 years, I think. Then they built the high school, and he graduated from there in
Oh wow. So he was one of the
60.
first couple classes
Yes.
to go through there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
no kidding. I had that thing come up with the Willamette Week recently. And I was so grateful to be included in their list of reasons to love Portland for 2024. But the one thing that I messaged him about it, and he said he was going to talk to the editorial team about changing it for the digital version.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the 90-minute long interview that I did for that article, that got a little bit mixed up that I lived in Oregon City, but I went to Gladstone High School.
I know.
And
I just read
he
this the other day.
like assumed that I went to Oregon City High School. And so my high
Yeah.
school story about how I got started DJing, he thought was my time in Oregon City High School. I never went to Oregon City High School.
You should
Eh,
probably be happy that that's the only
Um,
part that's wrong, though. I mean, the, anytime anytime you're like interviewed in a long form thing that's condensed into something small,
yeah.
you should be happy when there's only one minor problem.
Yeah. And here's the thing too, is like, some folks might not know this about me. I was a journalism major in college. My plan originally was to like study journalism and then get into broadcasting. And by the time I got out of college, the broadcast industry was on the decline because the internet was on the rise. And so it just never really panned out that way. But uh I was a journalism major, and so I have so much empathy for a dude who does a 90-minute interview with a DJ he's never met, has to like understand what he's talking about so that he can write competently about it in the article. But also, that was far from the only article that he had assigned that week.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he's a freelancer trying to make a living in print in 2024. That
Yeah.
dude was busting his ass
Yeah.
and did a great job. And so I'm completely empathetic. Again, I'm grateful to just be included. But that was the one thing, was that they got the high school wrong.
I did a interview recently for a Dutch newspaper, and I talked to this woman for probably 20 minutes about comic books. The hook was the Daredevil TV show that's coming back out and how that
Oh yeah.
affects the value of comic books and stuff. Well, so in the print article and on their website, it is a quote from me saying that comic books don't go down in value.
Oh no.
Or comic books never go down in value or something like that. Of course I didn't say that, but
Oh
it's
no.
not worth make a retraction, or we're going to sue. It's whatever. I just expect it,
Yeah. Yeah, there was a tagline on the article for my thing. And he said something about like Rose City Comic Con and Portland Retro Gaming Expo have never known anyone else on the needle.
Oh.
And like in my head, I'm like, first of all, absolutely not true for Rose City Comic Con.
Yeah.
I've been the DJ for the arcade because that's hosted by the Retro Gaming Expo,
Yeah.
but like
Right.
they have other DJs all over Rose City Comic Con doing DJ stuff for like the kids area or whatever.
Yeah.
But then for Portland Retro Gaming Expo, like as kind as it is to just assume I'm the only DJ, I actually manage a team of like 8 DJs.
Yeah.
So but that again, that's one of those things that like I didn't want to call the guy and be like, hey man, like,
as long as you didn't say it, I don't think you can feel that bad about it. I mean,
yeah. But I'll tell you, man, one of my favorite media interviews I've ever done has to have been the time that you and I were on 94.7 in Portland with Gustav doing the perfect playlist to promote the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. They wanted 10 songs, and you and I think split them. We did 5 each.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's
and dude, that was so. How often, like, are you just the media guy at this point for the Retro Gaming Expo? Like, are you the one that always has to do it?
I'm the default media person because nobody else wants to do it. It's not that I'm so good at it or that I really want to do it so much. It's that literally nobody else will do it. And I've kind of fallen into this position at my work too. Like other people just don't want to do it. My boss recently had to do a live interview about Lego, and she so didn't want to do it, but the person that was interviewing refused to do it in English, so she had to do it because I can't do it in Dutch.
Yeah.
But she was very, very mad that she had to do it. A lot of people just aren't comfortable, and I wouldn't say I'm comfortable, but I can get over it. Like, I guess it just has to do with
part of its personality. Like some people are just wired that way.
Yeah, and I guess I don't care that much if I like how I'm seen. Oh, that guy, made a mistake or whatever, before you started rolling, we were talking about like YouTube comments and stuff. Like, it sucks when someone says something, mean, but it's not gonna like, I don't know, it doesn't kill me to see something like that. So whatever,
So when we did that radio interview, I don't know if you know this, but there kind of still is, but there for a while in the mid 2010s there was a growing scene for chiptune music in Portland, and one of the spearheads for that growing scene is our friend Matt Hunter, who goes by Meklo. He ran a chiptune label for a while called Dataport, and he was responsible for not only publishing chiptune music, but also like putting on chiptune events at local, like doing like local chiptune gatherings where people could celebrate chiptune music. And for those that aren't aware, chiptune music is original music created using video game hardware. Is sort of like the simplest explanation that I can offer for what chiptune music is. And so that year that you and I did that radio thing, we had a very well-known chiptune artist that was going to be playing at the expo that year. So I included them in the playlist, and for the last 10 years now, I've been able to lord it over Meklo's head that I'm the one that got chiptune on the radio in Portland. before he ever did. um and so who was it? Was 8-bit. Hey everyone, we'll get back to the conversation in just a moment. I had to take a quick break actually during this part of the recording because I couldn't for the life of me remember the name of the group that we had worked with a few years ago. And so it will come to me. It will actually come to Toby a little quicker. He'll remind me of the name of the group, and then we'll move on. But this seemed like a natural place to cut in just because I had to take a beat and do a little bit of Google anyway. That being said, I want to thank you for listening this far into the episode. Of course, I want to thank you for all of the support, and hope you're enjoying yourself up to this point. I do want to remind you that so many people that have been watching the show have not been subscribed to the YouTube channel. And I know it seems like I'm being very repetitive, and I apologize for that. But I want to ask you a favor. Please, if you're enjoying the show and you want to see this thing grow and continue to succeed, consider subscribing to youtube.com/DJSwitchPDX. And if you want to take it a step further and you want to help me grow this show in other ways, you can do that at patreon.com/DJSwitchPDX, where I have just a single tier available. It's only $5 a month. And that $5 a month will get you extra bonus content. I make it a point to record extra content for every single episode that is only available on Patreon. And so I hope that you would consider supporting me over there as well. That being said, we need to get back to the conversation with Vice President of the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, Toby Wickwire. There's Compute Her, which is Michelle.
Was it 8-Bit Weapon?
Yes.
That's the band that she's in.
Okay, so 8-Bit Weapon was the one that played at the Retro Gaming Expo that year that you and I did the radio interview. Yes. And Meklo. Meklo's, by the way, 8-Bit Weapon, a married couple, Seth and Michelle, they are so sweet. They were so nice. And they were just a joy to work with, and incredibly talented also.
Yeah. They had played at the Classic Gaming Expo in Las Vegas. I think that's where I had met them, and some other PRGE people had met them.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah. Because I know like Chuck Van Pelt was still on the PRGE board at the time, and he was really adamant, like, I want to get 8-Bit Weapon. I was like, okay. Not going to argue with Chuck, you know. So that was when we were still doing a lot more like live music stuff. I know that we've like scaled back quite a bit on the live music stuff at the Retro Gaming Expo. But then, you know, over the years, one thing that hasn't really scaled back is the local TV stations. They love to interview you at 5 a.m.
At 5 o'clock in the morning. It's when
they want to interview you about a video game event at 5 in the morning.
That's why it's me, because nobody else will do it.
Is it?
But I've suckered a few other people in the last couple of times to get up that early to be on, you know, hilarious TV.
Is there a disconnect, you think, in the local media where they maybe don't understand why folks who would be interested in a gaming event might not be up and around at 5 a.m. watching television?
I think that the people that do those shows that record live at 5 a.m. are looking for something cool to do. So maybe some weekends there's 5 events, some weekends there's nothing going on. So they've got to find something. And yes, there's no one that's coming to our show that's watching that live at 5 or 6 a.m. I mean, no. doing the crosswords and drinking their cup of coffee at you know, they've been up since 5, they're watching live at 6. No, that's not happening. But they do chop it up and show it later.
Yeah.
So I do hear about it from other people that, you know, saw it at that point, and they put it on their social media and stuff. So it's worth doing. But yes, you're right. There's no attendee of the Portland Retro Gaming Expo that's watching that live at 5:30 or 6 or whatever time they're doing it.
That's usually what it is. My mom and her friends I'll get a text message from my mom or like some of my mom's friends like, "Hey, I saw you on the news." And meanwhile, all of our like 30 something friends are like, news?
Yeah, what's that?
Uh, so,
But I
so
do think that the local news does an okay job of making social media content that people under the age of dead watch.
I mean, all right. So like I will give them that credit. And especially recently, my friend Greg Nibbler got a job at working with one of the local news stations.
Yeah,
And in fact, he interviewed you for
he
the
did.
expo last year.
Yep, yep.
And that
Cool
was
guy.
kind of cool. He does a lot of their like web segment stuff. He's been a digital media producer for many years, and so you know, he certainly knows what he's doing. But B, I think he definitely has a solid pulse on like the importance of digital media and social media, and creating content for that space
Yeah, yeah,
versus traditional broadcast.
yeah.
Um, but that being
They're definitely trying. Just whatever you do, don't ever go on the comments of the local news. The local news story. Just don't do it.
Well, I think don't read the comments is just good advice in life at this point. That's
Yes, it is, but I think local news might be the worst flavor of that.
yeah. I don't know how something to do with the Retro Gaming Expo became Obama's fault, but I guess here we are, you know. Um so so you end up doing these like, you know, interviews like super early in the morning, which honestly I always feel bad that you have to like be that guy, because then like by 5 o'clock 6 o'clock, you know, you're burnt and ready to go home, and the show stays open till 10 11 o'clock.
Yeah, that's a hard thing about helping run the show is the being there early and then maybe staying all day and then having to be there early the next day. It's really hard to schedule that. Like
Yeah,
there's enough people that we can kind of divide up the responsibility, but there's always something that needs to be done that only one or two people can do at this time. And yeah, you just end up burning yourself out.
what's
I think I did a better job last year of trying to make time to like if I'm there at 5 a.m., then I'm leaving at dinner time, you know, and going out and getting dinner with a friend or something rather than sticking around there putting out fires, which
I
is
mean
what would happen. There would be something to do if I was there. It never ends.
that's a lot of what I've had to learn over the years, is like how to sort of manage myself, and just like managing my time on a bigger scale. Because like I can manage my time in a moment, or I can manage my time, you know, hour over hour, but we're not talking about a 4 hour shift or an 8 hour shift. We're talking about 3 straight days of being on,
Way
right?
more than that though, because of the setup days and teardown days. I mean,
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's a week of being at the convention center, basically.
And eating convention center food.
Oh, I try so hard to not eat any of it. That's one way to force yourself to take a break is to just say, I'm not going to eat this garbage. I'm going to at least, you know,
Yeah,
walk over and eat some slightly better food at Burgerville or Red Robin or something.
yeah.
Or maybe like actually take a real break and go somewhere awesome like, you know, Blackwater or something that's pretty close to there. In my opinion, there's nothing really good that's that close to the convention center,
Right.
but you get half a mile away. There's some pretty great stuff.
Yeah, you can survive a few days if you need to. I run into the
So
same.
many Denny's meals. I have eaten at Denny's so many times, and that is just like to choose Denny's over the food at the convention center. Just I think says a lot about the convention center.
I run into the same problem whenever I'm up at the Washington State Convention Center in downtown Seattle. There's a Subway that's like the most desperately beloved Subway I think in the world, because
Yeah,
it's the only thing remotely close to healthy anywhere near that convention center. And so whenever we do like a PAX or something, or an Emerald City, like that Subway, the line is like around the corner because no one wants to eat the greasy gut bomb stuff that's available elsewhere.
and it's probably half the price too.
Yeah, yeah. it's still like they're pricing for downtown Seattle at a
Yeah,
convention,
sure.
but it's still, you're right. It's still far more reasonably priced than like, the $25-$30 burger you can get across the street.
And if the food was really, really good and it cost that much, I wouldn't
Right.
complain too much. But it's literally trash, and it costs double what, reasonable food costs.
So so let me ask you this, man, because I know this is one of the big questions that I had going into this podcast today. I know we talked a little bit about sort of your history and background in gaming and how it led to you being on the board with the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. What are some of your favorite experiences now with the expo? Like last year or last 2 years, for example. I know, like, for me, incorporating Blockbuster has been massive. I
Yeah.
love that the Retro Gaming Expo has been working with Blockbuster to create and even to bring back the Blockbuster tournament. Like, that's massive, man.
Yeah, I think that that's really been a good relationship. The woman that runs the last Blockbuster in Bend is really cool. It's so
Sandy's the
awesome
best.
that they're willing to bring all this stuff out. I think it just gives like an awesome experience for uh, people that you just can't get that anywhere else. Sure, I'm sure lots of events have little pop up video stores and stuff, but it's not the real Blockbuster.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, is it's the team. Like, it's not just that, like, Blockbuster is there in spirit. It's literally Sandy shows up and hangs out, and
Yeah,
her team shows up and hangs out, and they stand up a full on Blockbuster store right in the Retro Gaming Expo, where
yeah.
you can browse VHS and you can buy merch and you can, like, it's a pretty complete experience that they've been able to put together and then bring to the expo.
Yeah. I think it's just another one of those like really cool Oregon things that that just
Yeah.
you don't get anywhere else. You don't get the Retro Gaming Expo anywhere else. You don't get the last Blockbuster anywhere else. And
Uh
it's cool that we are able to get them to bring a piece of that to our event. There's plenty of video game shows, of course, everywhere. They've popped up everywhere in the last 20 years, but
yeah.
I don't feel like they give the same experience.
It's not that's the thing, is like, better or worse is always going to be debatable, and it's always going to be a different answer person to person. But one thing I think is really not up for debate is that the Portland Retro Gaming Expo is different. And
Yeah.
there are things that you can do at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo that you literally can't do anywhere else. As a board member, I mean, the vice president, of course, but just as a board member, like, what what do you look for when you're making decisions about how to sort of expand the experiences of the Portland Retro Gaming Expo? Like, what goes into that, and what do you look for when trying to create something that is going to be uh impossible to replicate?
Yeah, so I mean, we're always coming up with ideas, but then you have to kind of figure out how you're going to follow through with that. Whether that's making a relationship with a person or a company that's going to make that happen, and then the next step is how much does it cost? Because there's been some kind of awesome things that we've tried to do, but they just don't pencil out.
Yeah.
Like, we're not trying to, like I said before, not trying to get rich, but we can't just throw out 70, 80 grand and not get anything back out of it besides the potential of some more ticket sales. So, some ideas don't work out, but maybe they will in the future. But yeah, I mean, that's sort of always just how it works, is someone on the board or a few people have come up with this idea. Oh, what if we did this? And then, maybe that person has an idea of how to implement it, or somebody else has an idea, some connection in the industry or whatever needs to happen to make that work. So that's sort of always what we're trying to do to expand the show and um, give people something different that they haven't experienced at our show before, and hopefully something they haven't experienced at other events.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that you know, it's been really fun for me as the DJ in the arcade. Like, I kind of know my place, and I kind of know, like, every year the Portland Retro Gaming Expo comes around, like, I sort of have my stuff dialed in because it doesn't change much. Like, the arcade games available might change year over year, or the arcade might expand, you know, over time. But it's still, you know, two turntables and a microphone, right? And so, I get the sort of like privilege of sitting back and watching this stuff sort of grow and change and expand around me. And that's been really, really fun for me. One of the things that I know that the expo has incorporated since coming back in 22, there's a lot more emphasis on streaming content and on creating digital media content, kind of like this. But specifically the weekend of, I know that, you know, and shout out to Red Ox and Ducks in Disguise for like putting a lot of time and effort into the streaming stuff. Is there, do you think that those sort of changes and that effort into sort of modernizing something like the Retro Gaming Expo, do you think there's a bit of a dissonance there to where like the show is retro, but we still need to be creating web media, and we still need to be streaming, and we still need to be doing some things that keep up with modern times?
Yeah, I mean, otherwise we would be sending out like we'd be like physically mailing you Polaroids in the mail of the show, or
Sticking
using a
flyers in people's windshield wipers.
using a Atari ST computer to go online and post about the show on the old bulletin board. But no, yeah, of course. I mean, we're always trying to use new technology to document what we've done, to show it off to people that maybe can't come. Maybe they'll never be able to come, but they just want to be able to see what it's like. And of course, to get people to see what it's like so they'll come the next time. I mean, that's probably the biggest reason why we
Yeah.
do those type of things.
I
I mean, for years we've kind of, I think, already captured the market of serious game collectors in the Pacific Northwest. Okay.
Sure.
So anything we do is to try to either bring serious game collectors from somewhere else or more casual people that are not, you know, the hardcore collectors that don't know about our show, because it isn't just for those people. I
Right.
think anyone with even the smallest interest in video games could have fun at our show.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's one of my favorite things about the Portland Retro Gaming Expo is it's not just a giant swap meet.
Yeah.
It attracts so many different kinds of people, and there's literally everyone. And I'm not even exaggerating. Every single individual person that I talk to about the Portland Retro Gaming Expo loves something different about it. They all have
Yeah,
a
yeah,
different
yeah.
answer whenever I say, "What do you love about the expo?" And they all come with something different, and it's because there's so much to do and so many different interests that the expo is trying to tap into.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of people go there for one reason, but then maybe they kind of discover something else that they weren't expecting that's actually cool too. Like some of the people that are really just arcade people. You know, they buy and
Yeah.
sell old arcade games or fix them up. That's their hobby. They don't really collect console games or something. But, you know, maybe they come to the show and they see the Tetris tournament and then they get wrapped up in that. Or, you know, the Blockbuster we were talking about before, or the auction. You know, just a live auction is its own experience. Even if you don't really care that much about the things that are being auctioned, it can be a kind of amazing thing.
There's I think one of the things about the expo, and I talked with this a little bit with John Hancock on the first episode of this podcast. One of the things about the expo that I truly love is that you have an opportunity to create a personal experience that is completely impossible to recreate like ever again. The one I talked about with John Hancock was being able to be in a room with a complete Genesis collection.
Hmm.
The Genesis was my first console, my first proper gaming console.
Hmm.
And I don't know that I'll ever be in a room with a complete collection of Genesis cartridges ever again. And that was incredible to see and to be able to take a photo. But I had there was another experience that I haven't talked about much, that is one of those that like I'll be able to carry with me forever. I have touched a Nintendo PlayStation.
Nice.
One finger. Just
Yeah.
I didn't want to go any more than that because I didn't want to break it. I didn't want to like but and it's not the kind of thing that like everybody was allowed to do. I kind of like snuck in and you know.
Right.
But
oh, you did?
I don't it was a long time ago now. The statute of limitations
It wasn't that long
ago. It was a very long time ago. But you know, being able to be in a room with something like the Nintendo PlayStation, there's only 2 ever made ever. And it's such an incredibly important and incredibly finite piece of gaming history.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a room with one, you know. Not many people get to say that.
Yeah, it's really cool that the guy that found it was willing to sort of take it around to different places to let people experience it, because
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what's happened to it, but I think it was sold, and I don't know if it's, locked away somewhere or if it gets brought out to show the public, but I know the same person doesn't have it anymore. So
the gentleman that had it, I think passed away, and then it was
right.
sold.
Yes.
It was sold to someone else who I think was trying to get it restored.
Oh, okay.
And that's the last I heard about it.
Yeah.
They were trying to figure out a way, like through 3D printing or something, to be able to like manufacture a part for the CD drive that like just isn't made.
Okay.
And so I think that was the last I heard about it.
Yeah.
There was
several years ago, though, right? I mean,
this was years ago. Yeah. There's a internet personality named Ben Heckendorn.
Yeah.
Or he goes by Ben Heck online.
Yeah.
And he's a well-known console modder, and he does a lot of restorative work. And he came to Portland to try and fix the Nintendo PlayStation, because there was something wrong with the CD drive or whatever. And so he took it with him back to his studio to like tear it down and try to fix it. And I don't recall what happened with that.
Yeah.
But
someone's gonna tell you in the comments.
I'm sure somebody will be in the comments.
Idiot.
But yeah, being able to be around that, you know. One of the things that John Riggs and I were talking about on the show is, growing up as a kid playing NBA Jam, like it was one of my favorite games on the Genesis. And if you had told, little kid Switch that someday he was going to be able to hang out with Tim Kithrow, like without the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, there's no way that happens.
Yeah.
It's just, I apologize, my phone's blowing up. It's insane to me. It's insane to me that
if someone would have told you that when you were a little kid, you probably would have said, "Who the hell is Tim Kithrow?"
Well, possibly. If you had told me I was going to hang out with the NBA Jam guy, if you told me I was going to hang out with like the Boom Shakalaka guy, but it's amazing to me that those incredibly special experiences are the result of a bunch of volunteers on a not-for-profit board who don't get paid to do this. And so never mind my role as a vendor, never mind my role as a DJ and as a personality for the expo. Just as a fan, I so rarely get the opportunity to thank you all for what are ultimately experiences that maybe I'll tell my grandkids about someday.
You're welcome.
No, but seriously, also, thank you.
I appreciate it. And thanks for all the work that you've done as sort of a cheerleader for the Retro Gaming Expo. Not that that's the only thing that you do, but I know you are an advocate for us and have been for a very long time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not something that y'all pay me for. You know, that's the thing that I think makes it really sort of cemented in my mind as, you know, like it's, if it was something you all were paying me for, like if this show was something you all were paying me for, like it might create a different idea in people's heads about the reality of the situation. But the reality is there's no money involved at all. It really is that special to me, and I really want people to have that special experience and to go see what I see every year when we do that weekend at the convention center. Yes, the food is terrible, but what
It's
you
not our
get,
fault. We
but
wish
but
there was better food.
but what you get for putting up with that terrible food is a chance to potentially do something that you'll never be able to do again.
Yeah.
And that's I think the real magic of something like the Portland Retro Gaming Expo.
Someone last year sent some interview questions before the show, and I can't remember what media it was from, but one of the questions was like, is there anything special food-wise that I should try at the convention center?
No.
Because maybe that's a thing somewhere else. You know,
They have these water bottle machines in the walls.
Oh, can I tell a quick? Here's a good. Can I tell a quick
Please.
convention center story about
Oh,
the water bottle machines?
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we're always battling them about them wanting to put their own food carts onto our space that we've rented.
What
And
the
you know,
fuck?
for whatever reason, sometimes we let them, or you know, whatever. They always want to do it. We usually have to push back. But
Oh
one
God.
year they put, I think it was an ice cream vendor in front of one of those water bottle things. Those water bottle things that it has a little counter on it and says how much, you know, they're saving the planet or whatever.
Right.
This tart was in front, blocking that so you could not access it, selling plastic bottles of water.
Oh God. Yeah, there are levels of decisions being made for that space outside of the scope of the board for the expo. Like this is nothing to do with the expo, obviously, you know that, but like for the folks listening at home, like the thing about working with the Oregon Convention Center is that the Oregon Convention Center has their own teams of people who make, you know, decisions by committee that don't always really align with what the expo wants, or what Rose City Comic Con wants, or what, you know, insert
or
any,
what they say their stated goals are.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's another
They're
show for another time.
fine. They're fine.
I think the real unfortunate problem is that there just is no other space. You know, I guess it's kind of a good problem to have, that the expo is so big that like we can't really take it anywhere else besides the Oregon Convention Center.
Yep.
But you know, success, man. It's it's definitely a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's going to bring us to the end of this episode. Toby, do you have anything that you want to plug or anything that you want to shout out before we go?
Not that I can think of. Yeah,
the expo this year.
Come visit me at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. Visit my sister at our business in Oregon City and buy some shit from my my real job at Katowiki. But if you're in the U.S., it's probably not worth your time to look at.
I mean, the Retro Gaming Expo, the dates have changed this year. It's September 27th to the 29th, as opposed to middle of October, which it has been in previous years. So if you're looking to, you know, schedule your plans for the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, make sure you keep September 27th to the 29th on your schedule. And of course, Toby, thank you so much for hanging out today and kicking it with us.
You are very welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right, everyone, that's it for this episode of Pick Up and Play. Thank you again so much for listening all the way through to the end. I truly, truly appreciate it. We've got several more episodes ready to go out. including next week's, which has already been recorded. I am so excited to share it with you, but you'll have to keep an eye out. I'm releasing Fridays right now. So far, I've been able to keep up the pace every single Friday. I'm shooting for Friday around noon Pacific time, although last week I was just a little bit late on that. This week I hopefully have been able to make up for that, depending on when you are seeing / hearing this. That being said, I am so far able to keep up the weekly pace. So if you're enjoying these weekly shows, please do me a favor, leave a comment and let me know. Give me a shout out. And if you really want to help, honestly, I've been talking about the Patreon, but even something as simple as checking out my content on TikTok or on Instagram or on Facebook or the YouTube shorts, all of that stuff really helps. Share it with a friend. Tell somebody you know that's into video gaming. Let them know that there's a new podcast and it's all of the folks in the retro gaming community that are getting together and talking about their favorite moments in childhood. It's talking about some of the things that bring all of us together every single year to celebrate this thing that we call video games. So I hope you'll consider supporting in those ways as well. That being said, that brings us to the end of this episode, and I will see you on the next one.